Welcome to the Research Like a Pro with DNA question and answer series. Today's video is about how can agentic AI browsers help us with locality research. And this is the longer video where I dive into explaining the risks and the benefits of using an agentic AI browser. So hopefully this helps you to get an idea of what they are, how they might be helpful, and what they can do with the study of locality research when you're working with your genealogy. So, what are agentic browsers and how can they help us with our locality research? That's what we're going to talk about right now. And let's start by going over what agentic browsers are, what their capabilities are. They are AI tools that can navigate, they can click on a website, they can click on something on your screen, click a button, they can type into fields, they can type things into documents, they can search databases on websites, so they can summarize things. And so what they can do is everything you can do on a web browser. So what you do is you give the assistant, the AI assistant that's usually in the form of a sidebar next to your web browser, you give it a goal or a prompt, instructions, and it usually works best if you give it instructions for what to do and then what to do with the information it has when you're done. So putting it into some kind of Google Doc or summarizing it for you that you can then copy and paste it into somewhere else. Then after you give it a goal, you then watch the agent navigate on your web browser and click and type and do things. And sometimes it'll give you a plan to approve first. And sometimes it may get stuck and have to stop and ask you for permissions or to do certain things that it can't do without you, like logging into a website. So, how can this help us with our locality research? Well, it can search the web and add sources and links to your locality guide for you. It can help you navigate and search through complex library catalogs to find relevant collections. Maybe you want to search through that catalog for everything in a certain time period, or everything of three different source types, tax, deeds, and probate, or whatever it is you're looking for. Then, after it goes through those searches, it can compile the collection information into your locality guide, including a description of that collection and a link to it. So here's a little taste of what it can do. I gave the Claude in Chrome agentic sidebar a little task to just show you quickly what it can do before we dive into this a little more. So I put in a prompt to find all the collections that might have records in Tennessee from 1800 to 1830 and exclude federal censuses and focus on Tennessee specific collections. And I had this ancestry card catalog page open. It gave me a little plan. I reviewed the plan and then I clicked start. And then you can see that it's now on its own, clicking, filtering, searching through this card catalog. A lot of the times, these AI agents will take screenshots of the page to be able to read it. And so after they read the page, then they type things into the browser, go to different websites. Um, this one is only able to access this one tab that I've given it, which is the Ancestry card catalog. So it's sticking with that and kind of doing what I asked it to do within this website. So unless you give it permission in the plan that it gives you, it will stay in that website. But if the plan says it's going to navigate to another website and you give it permission, then it will do that. So now I'm scrolling down here just to see what it's doing. And you can see my cursor is moving around. That's me. So I can scroll up and down and see what it's doing. Now it's finished its task and it's summarizing the collections that it found. And I forgot in my prompt to tell it that I wanted, a list of these collections as well as the URL and in a way that I could put it into my locality guide. So after it gave me all this great information about collections and ancestry that might be relevant, I gave it another prompt that said, okay, now create a Google Doc that compiles this great information that you just found and includes links to the collections, because that's really what's going to be useful for me, is to have it in a format where I can click on it, go search it, and then put it in my research plan. And so now it's going to take a while to go back through and gather all the URLs. So if I had done a better prompt, I think that would have been more helpful. But now I'm going to just jump forward in this video to see the end. So here it creates a Google Doc, and then it is using JavaScript tools to basically write and execute script to help it create a Google Doc and put text into it from all the URLs that it's found. So once it finishes up, let's see, I can see the beginning of it. It pastes all the content into the document. So we have nice little headings here, historical books. We have the little navigation pane showing us all of the things that it just did over here. And we have URLs taking us to the exact collection. So there it is. And that all occurred, let's see the total time. I can see it on the video. This all occurred in about 12 and a half minutes. So in 12 and a half minutes, I could have worked on something else while this part of my locality guide was created. So looking more closely at the sections it created, and note I didn't really tell it to make sections like this, it just did a good job with it. Top priority collections for the time period, 1800 to 1830, and give me some marriage tax lists for Wilson County, so that's kind of specific, wills and probate records, another specific county, Maury County, divorce records for Tennessee, census substitutes, North Carolina and Tennessee Revolutionary War land warrants, and some newspapers. Then it breaks down some other categories. So land and property, wills and probate, marriage records, tax records, cemetery and burial, and military. So I narrowed this down to just focus on ancestry collections, which I knew would be really easy for it to do. But we can use this idea and do agentic browser locality research with some of the more complex and difficult catalogs as well. So I'll show that in a minute. Scrolling down a little further here, we have military records and genealogical references, historical books, and county histories. So it really had a lot in the catalog for Tennessee. So that was great. Okay, so if you're kind of wondering what are the agentic browsers that I can even use, here's a list of the ones that I know about. There might be more. These are the main ones that I've heard of. Perplexity's Comet browser. You can download this browser for free, and it's based on the Chrome browser, which is open source. But if you want to use it for what I just showed you, those agentic features, you need to have a paid plan. And so most of people will have the $20 a month plan, and that's sufficient to do what I just showed you. And another tool that a lot of people are starting to use is Claude in Chrome, which is a Chrome extension. So you just use a Google Chrome browser, and then you go to the extensions store and you download this Claude in Chrome, which is in beta extension, and then it installs as like button at the top of your Chrome browser. And you have to have a paid plan at Claude, and they also have a $20 a month plan. Now, these other two are either more expensive or more limited. So ChatGPT Atlas is in beta, and it's only available to Mac users right now. That's the beta group they chose. Instead of choosing like just a certain subscriber level, they gave it to everyone who has a free plus pro or go plan, but uses a Mac operating system. So I haven't tried that one yet. Then Google has an agentic browser or agentic browser mode called Auto Browse. And that's also in beta, and it's only for the really highest paying subscribers in the Ultra subscription who are paying $250 a month. So because of that, I have only tried Perplexity, Comet, and Claude in Chrome, and I like both of them a lot. Here's Perplexity's Comet browser. And when Perplexity is doing agentic work, it has this kind of like blue mirage. And so that's kind of fun. So here's a video. And this one, I asked Perplexity to search the family search catalog and another page, which was the Explore Images page, to find any record collections for Pendleton District, South Carolina, from its inception in 1798 to when it was split into two different counties in December of 1826. So you can see it is typing into the search box for the catalog, Pendleton District, and it came up with 0 results because it didn't know the right way to type it in, which is, I think you have to put in the state first. So it instead tries some different searching methods and eventually finds what it needs. It doesn't give up, which is good. And anyway, it's just kind of fun to see this like blue mist working so that you can see that, and also this like little dot thing running across the top of the tab showing you that these are the 2 tabs that the AI Perplexity Assistant has access to in order to complete the directions that you gave it. So I gave it these 2. Um, so I stopped there because it takes a while. It's not instantaneous. It does take some time. But the beauty of it is that you can be working on something else. And sometimes I like to watch it, especially when when you're first doing something with an agentic browser, it is really good to watch it and oversee things and make sure it's not doing anything weird. And we'll talk about some of the risks and um, things to watch out for. But it is, in theory, I think, such a great idea that we can be working on something else while this is going on the side in a different screen or another monitor where we can kind of keep an eye on it over here while we're doing something else over here. Okay, so when this was complete, I expanded the sidebar by dragging and dropping this divider over a little bit so I can see the whole table it created. But it just created a comprehensive report on family search resources available for Pendleton District, South Carolina. So let's zoom in on what it says because this is great. So it says records originating from the Pendleton District period are largely held in the Anderson District Courthouse and archived by the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. They are cataloged under Anderson County on Family Search because Pendleton records were transferred to Anderson District when Pendleton was split in 1826. So that was great that it figured that out because I didn't give it an easy job telling it to find resources for this district that's not around anymore. So going down, it found 132 total catalog results for Pendleton District. And then it says the following are the most directly relevant primary records, using that history term rather than original sources or original records that we usually say in genealogy, but that's okay. So then it gives me court records and it has the minutes, and then it has this little link to the page. And when I click on this, it actually has the full link. But it figured out that within the link, it has this identifying number here. So that's what it was using for the link. But clicking on it, it takes you to the full page. So that was interesting. And then it has the Court of Ordinary Minutes, and you can see the time frame includes some of the years that I specified, which was 1798 to 1830. The judgment rolls and the abstracts of the judgments. And it tries to give the format, which is interesting. So this one tells me it's a microfilm and the originals are at the courthouse. This one says microfilm available online. And this one says it's just microfilm. So I'm a little dubious because I know that the Family Search catalog, they've been trying to get everything digitized. So I'm curious now to go and check these and see if they are truly not digitized. I'm pretty sure these judgment rolls are digitized. I think they all are. So that's something that it might need to have some human oversight to check and make sure. So here we're on one of the pages. This must be the last one it ended on. Well, what I did here is I scrolled down to the bottom because there were a lot of sections to this table. And then I clicked the copy button at the bottom of it and I pasted it into a Google Doc and gave it this title. And then at the end, it gave me this key research notes, kind of about what it found to be available, some interesting information about the county splitting and that kind of thing. So it gave me court, land and deed, probate and wills, naturalization, and census. And then I can't read what this whole thing says. Family search collections, then key research notes. So it must be that this is state level stuff because these don't specifically say Pendleton. Oh yeah, and then on the side it says covers Pendleton area. So that was helpful. It even went a little bit above and beyond there to find some state level sources that might be helpful. This one doesn't cover the right time period. Neither does that. This one does. So some of these might be helpful. All right, so that was the Perplexity. Let's see. That was the Perplexity Comet browser. And so it took two web pages and found all of the family search collections for a time period and a place. And then it compiled it here on the sidebar, which I then copied and pasted into a Google Doc. So now moving on from Perplexity's Comet browser, let me show you more about the Claude in Chrome extension. So I mentioned that an extension that you use with Google Chrome. So this is my Google Chrome browser that I normally use for work every day. And you can see I'm signed into Google Chrome here, and it has the Ask Gemini button, which does open a sidebar, but this isn't agentic. It can only summarize things on the page. The Claude in Chrome sidebar here that I have open right now, it can actually take actions on your behalf and click and type. But the Ask Gemini right now for me, because I'm not an Ultra subscriber, doesn't do that. Anyway, so when you click this little anthropic symbol in the little area here at the top, it opens the sidebar for Claude. And I showed you in the beginning that I had Claude in Chrome look through all those ancestry collections for Tennessee. And so this was the next prompt that I gave it. And I said, now search the web for repositories that might have unique digitized collections for this same time period. So then it created a plan and kind of figured out some websites that might be helpful. So here's Claude's plan. It's going to look at HathiTrust, archive.org, libraryofcongress.gov, digitalnorthcarolina.org, genealogytrails.com, and then it gave me an approach. Number one, search Google for digitized Tennessee records, repositories beyond Ancestry. Two, search for major Tennessee specific archives and digital collections like TSLA, Tennessee Virtual Archive, university libraries. Number three, search for county level and regional repositories with digitized early 19th century Tennessee records. And number four, visit and verify the most promising repositories to confirm what they hold. And number five, add findings to the existing Google Doc as a new section. So then I can approve the plan or make changes. And sometimes I do make changes to the plan if I think it's taking like a circuitous route, or, it's doing things in the wrong order. It's not including a website I want it to do. You can just tell it and then make changes to that plan. And you can see that right now in the tab group that the AI can access, I only have this one tab open, which is the Google Doc that I originally had it put all the collections from Ancestry into. And its plan said it's going to update this Google Doc with what it finds. So that's nice because it can just keep adding to this and expanding this and turn it into a Tennessee locality guide for this time period. And then I could even expand the time period later if I need to and add to it with more collections. So any tab that you drop, so let's say I open a new tab here and then I drag it and drop it next to this little Claude in Chrome group, it's going to be covered with this little gray bar, and that indicates that it's part of the tab group that the AI sidebar can read and access. And so while it completes this plan, it's going to open these websites potentially in new tabs within this tab group, because if I approve the plan, then it's allowed to do that. All right, so this is awesome and fun, but there are some risks. And so this is really important that we recognize that these tools are in beta, and we will want to be aware of the risks and be careful. So when you download Claude in Chrome's Chrome extension and get that set up on your computer, the first thing it opens up is a web page on Anthropic's website that tells you about the risks. So let's review these. So it says, understand the risks. Claude brings AI directly to your browser, handling tasks and navigating sites for you. These new capabilities create risks bad actors may try to exploit. Malicious actors can hide instructions in websites, emails, and documents that trick AI into taking harmful actions without your knowledge, including accessing your accounts or files, sharing your private information, making purchases on your behalf, and taking actions you never intended. And then if you click this Learn More button about understanding the risks, it goes into more detail. And then if you scroll down on that same page, it has how to browse safely, and it has some tips for that. So it says the beta experience is designed for AI experienced users who understand these safety measures. So the first safety measure says start with trusted sites. Only grant permissions to familiar websites while you're learning how Claude works. So you notice that I only used websites that I'm familiar with, like Ancestry, Family Search, and those ones that I read to you about archive.org, HathiTrust, and some of those other ones. Those are ones that I have used before. Um, if I was being more careful, I might remove permission from a couple of those that are more open source, like I think there was like a GenWeb one. That one I might be a little more cautious with because it's not as secure as like an ancestry.com type site. Okay, then this next one says review before sensitive actions. Always confirm before Claude handles financial, personal, or work critical tasks. So right now I'm only using these agentic browsers for locality research because this doesn't feel like a sensitive or personal financial type task. So I feel comfortable testing it out on this. So I would be cautious using it for things that are more personal or sensitive. The next one is to watch for malicious instructions and be cautious if Claude behaves unexpectedly. Some sites hide instructions to override your instructions. So um, I probably wouldn't want to use it in my email yet, but maybe if I had like a separate email account that I wanted to, test it out on that didn't have a bunch of important stuff, maybe I could try that. So if you have like a separate account that doesn't have like your financial information in your email. And then if you notice anything strange, then report issues immediately and help us improve by flagging any concerning behavior through the feedback options. So they have the thumbs up and thumbs down to be able to report weird behavior. And of course, there's always the button while the agentic browser is working to stop it. I don't know if you saw that, but there is a stop button that you can click, and you can also close down the browser. One thing to know about agentic browsers is that the chat history is more temporary. It's not saved forever like your other chats within Claude or with Perplexity. So it's treated more like an incognito chat or a temporary chat where it's really only there when you have it open. So any valuable information you have in that sidebar that you want to get out, you have to copy and paste it into another document. So make sure that you're getting that out before you end the session. And if you accidentally close it, it will be lost. And I was so sad this happened to me with a task is helping me do with looking at a bunch of family trees and finding common ancestors. And I accidentally closed the sidebar, and then the whole conversation was immediately gone. I couldn't get it back. So as you're going, you could save it. I really like the idea of having it just with each prompt, update this Google Doc with everything you find so that the information isn't saved in the sidebar because it won't be saved. Instead, it's being put into a place where you'll have it. So I really like the Google Doc idea. So why does this happen? Well, Perplexity has an FAQ about this. I guess a lot of people have been wondering, where did my threads go? And it talks about some of the reasons why some of these threads are temporary. And a thread just means a chat in Perplexity. It says that Perplexity doesn't delete threads randomly. However, due to privacy and data retention policies, some temporary threads expire after a period of time. And then what do temporary threads look like? Within your history, threads will be marked as temporary sometimes. And here's an example of what it will look like. It has a little time symbol with a dotted circle and says temporary thread and the date it will expire. And um, so sometimes they mark threads as temporary. We can also mark a thread as temporary if we want it to be one that's not retained for like sensitive chatting. Then those ones aren't even saved at all, except for maybe for like um, reviewing for safety reasons on the other end. Okay, and so scrolling down on that page, it says Here are a few situations where the temporary threads might occur, where they mark it as a temporary thread. It says whenever personal context is involved. So if you attach a file or use a connector, like a connector that connects to Airtable or Google Drive, if you use the Comet browser, temporary threads will always expire when your query involves open tabs, browsing history, or triggering an agentic event. This is due to access restrictions on personal content, navigational queries, and data retention policies. So, this explains why anything we do with the agentic features of the Comet browser are not going to be kept forever. They've just created this policy that these are temporary because they're reading personal context and they don't want to save that on their browsers for data training and all of that. So this is actually good for us because it gives us more privacy, right? That whatever we're doing with the Comet browser is not necessarily going to be used for any data training or saved at all. So while it does make it harder for us because we have to save what it's doing, in a Google Doc or some other way, it's good because it's more private. If you're logged out, then it will be anonymous. If you're in incognito mode, then that expires after 24 hours. And if you're on an Enterprise Pro or Enterprise Max, you can figure out what your organization's policies are for default thread retention. All right, so that is just the bare minimum on what you can do with agentic browsers. But hopefully that gave you a taste of some of the things that are possible now. In the past, we would spend so much time in locality research, finding collections, copying and pasting them into a locality guide. And now with an agentic browser, we can set a task and watch it do it on its own while we sit there and eat our salad or whatever we're doing and watching it go. So it's exciting, but we need to be careful as always with anything that's new and in beta like this. Do we have any questions?
We have several questions. So I'm going to start at the top, and it could be that you've already answered these, but let's just review because now
Okay.
that we've seen and learned a lot about agentic browsers, I think we'll have better context for these questions. Okay, so first one, I haven't been brave enough to try one of the agentic browsers yet. How do you keep it from going to other things in your browser, like your bookmarks perhaps, or other open tabs?
Okay, so I would just do like a very simple experiment with it the first time you use it and make sure you keep the setting on where it has to, you have to approve its plan before it can do anything. So that would be like the safest, most limited way for you to try it, where it's not authorized to do anything beyond what's in the plan that you approve. So I think I showed that a little bit where I was approving the plan for it to go to like archive.org and Library of Congress. So that was a little bit more broad where I told it to search the web and told it to go find these other sites. But in my original examples, I just gave it one tab and told it you can only look at this ancestry catalog and you have to stay within ancestry.
Right. And I do love how it will ask you to okay all of its different steps if you have asked it to do that. So that's
Yeah.
helpful.
Another thing you can do is just do not log into any other sites. Use it on a browser where you have no bookmarks. Like the Perplexity browser will ask you if you want to import all of your Chrome settings, passwords, like history, all of that when you set it up because it is based on Chrome. And you can say no. And then it's just not logged into any websites at all and has no, it's a brand new browser. So it won't have any bookmarks or anything like that. So if you wanted to try some tests with like a very logged out browser, just start the Perplexity, download Perplexity and don't sign in to anything so that it doesn't have access to anything.
That is a great tip. Okay, so when you were doing your locality research, did you give it our Research Like a Pro locality guide template? I don't think I saw you doing that.
That's obviously a really good idea. I just didn't do that. And I was hurrying to put these slides together. So yeah, I was just kind of like, let's see what it can do. And yeah, that would be the best because like I showed you with um Claude and Chrome, it kind of created like a very similar type of template to what we already have with all those
Hmm.
different sections and links to things in that type of thing. So yeah, you could absolutely open a template Google Doc like that or one that you already have in progress and then have it add to it.
Yeah, I was thinking that because it could read it, and also in our template, it has the ideas of things we're looking for, and so that would even help it to have more instructions just by reading the template in that section. You could say, look for all of the probate, and then it could go read that section and understand what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and I will say that giving it the whole template might overwhelm it and use up all of your limits for the day. So you might want
Interesting.
to do it by section. And that would be a good way to test it too, especially if you're just
Yeah.
getting started and just say, fill out this one section of my locality guide.
Right. Don't just say go do the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we have learned that really is the best way to work with AI anyway, just one section at a time, because then you can actually have control. You can go look at it, you can see if it's working right, which
Yeah.
kind of leads to our next question. Does this give more granular results than going to the family search catalog and searching for the county? So did you feel like it was pretty complete? Did it do more?
It did more. Yeah, it gave me that section of state level stuff. So that was more. And I guess one of the challenges for me in the past with the Family Search catalog is that you can't just open up the page for the county and copy and paste all of those collections to your guide. You have to click on each one
Right.
because once you click on each one, then you see, oh, this is digitized and oh, this is a book. It's a time consuming process
Mhm.
because it doesn't give you that much information on the main page. It gives you just the title and a link to it. So,
Exactly. And then sometimes you open it up and you'll see, say, for instance, probate, and you've got 20 collections, but most of them don't apply because you're looking for a certain set of years.
yeah, I guess that was one of the benefits too, because I told it I only want this 30-year time frame.
So then it can just go find that for you rather than you having to go through each one, which is what I have done many times in the past.
Yeah.
I actually really love this whole idea of using an agent to help with the locality work. It's just that next step. We were loving it when the large language models would just go and do this for us, but this seems like this is even better. So,
Yeah, I mean, so the chatbots can do a lot of this for you. And we've been using that feature,
mhm,
deep research and going out and finding things on the web. But I always felt a little dissatisfied that it was only getting those like more public websites and not really those databases with library catalog information where you really have to search the database yourself to see what collections are in it. And so this is where I feel like the agent can do a lot more and get more granular collections than deep research or just, a regular perplexity query could get you. So it's exciting to see that it's more thorough.
right. And I love that it can actually fill out a document and just have it be a real document.
Mhm.
That's neat. Okay. Let's see. I think we already talked about this, but I'll just read it anyway. Does the Claude agent work only when you're logged into Claude? For example, would it be able to access my bank account if I'm logged into my bank while I'm still logged into Claude?
So you would have to give it permission to go to your bank's website and or put the tab with your bank into the tab group that Claude can access. So if you aren't logged into your bank, which banks automatically log you out within like 5 or 10 minutes, right? So you shouldn't be always logged into your bank. At least that's how it works for me. Like I always get logged out of my banks. So if it's trying to log in, it technically could because if I told it to and wanted it to, and I gave it that approval, it could probably do that because I do have those like passwords like saved there in my browser, like a lot of people do, right? So if you have those saved and you give it access to your bank, yes, it could log into your bank. And I think some people are more willing to try that. For me personally, I don't need any help from AI with my banking, so I'm not going to be trying that. But yeah, that's why I recommend if you want to try this, but you want to be careful, just go to a brand new Perplexity Comet browser that doesn't have any of your passwords saved at all. And then you can feel more comfortable.
Such a good way to practice. Okay, so then is the Chrome extension for Claude the only way to use Claude as an agent? So I asked Claude, and it said there is Claude Cowork, which we have heard of Claude Cowork. It's a desktop app desktop application that allows Claude to manage workflows on your computer. So that one might be one that we would want to start working with.
Right, when
Then
organizing a bunch of files.
I really want to try that one. Haven't done it yet. And then there are a couple for developers. So there's Claude Code for developers, and there's Claude Managed Agents, which was just launched yesterday. That's more developer oriented and requires using the API. So, I we will probably continue to see things, but I think perhaps for us, the Claude and Chrome and Claude Cowork would be the two that we'd use, unless we really want to develop something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, we're so used to using Claude in the chatbot format, and some of the things that it's doing there are kind of agentic, like deep research where it goes search the web and like writes
Mhm.
a report. But these browsers that I've been showing today, where you open it on the sidebar of some web pages and give it a task to do and having it click and stuff like that. Um, I think that type of agent, a browser agent, Claude in Chrome is the the big way to use it. And then for a computer agent like Claude Cowork that can use your computer files, I'm pretty sure Perplexity just launched one like that called Perplexity Computer. How's that for a name?
It's
So
so creative.
there's these are the next wave of AIs that we're going to be seeing are these agents that either can help us navigate the web or can help us use our computer. And for coders, it helps you write code. So
Right. And then just a comment, it's a great tip to add instructions to have the agentic browser put its work output into a Google Doc and update it as it works. Yeah, that's a great tip. Question, I think you've already answered this too. Is it safer to do this incognito?
that's a great idea. You could do that incognito with the Chrome browser, a Chrome incognito window if you wanted to do that, and then it doesn't have any of your personal information. Yeah, that's definitely a very safe way to do it. Much safer than, being logged into your personal Chrome browser or whatever browser you. And I don't know if you can even, yeah, I think you have to either use Claude in Chrome or the Perplexity Comet browser, as far as I know. And I haven't tried ChatGPT Atlas browser yet because I don't have a Mac, but and I'm not paying 250 a month for Google, so I haven't tried
Okay.
their auto browse either.
Okay, so, and I think we just kind of discussed this also, but the difference between using an agentic browser versus using ChatGPT or Claude, which we've all had great success with, you know.
Yeah, it can do a lot with the chatbot. It can do the deep research. I think the biggest thing that it can do is like write it into your Google Doc for you, if that's where you're putting your final locality guide and searching those library catalogs that were always kind of spotty with the deep research. You can keep telling it,
Hmm.
go back again to the family search catalog and get everything out of it. And you would never still feel like it got everything. So
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so what do you prefer, Perplexity or Claude with the Chrome browser extension?
well, it's still really early in my experiments, but they both worked well. I really liked using Claude in Chrome until I gave it a task that was really, really long, and it told me I had to upgrade to Max to continue. And at that point, I was so invested that I was like, okay, fine, I'll pay the $100, see what happens with this. And so I have a Max subscription for this 1 month. And so that was kind of like a challenge. And I think with Perplexity, I don't know yet if that same prompt would have hit the limits in Perplexity. I have a hunch that Perplexity gives you a little bit more usage in your $20 a month plan in the Perplexity Comet browser because they really want you to use it. And I think Claude is so popular right now that they're struggling with like hitting their limits. So I think they're trying to really limit people. And I think Perplexity isn't quite as popular. I think it's still popular, but I don't know. I'm just guessing. So far, I haven't been asked by Perplexity Comet Browser to pay for a more expensive plan, but I also don't think I've given it anything too difficult. So it's really a tie for me right now.
Hmm. Good. Interesting. And we're always just experimenting and trying to see what we can do, kind of pushing the limits with how much can we get out of our payment plan.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have these specific prompts available to share, so we can try to build locality guides on our own this way? I may have missed that.
Yeah, I can give you those prompts. I don't have like a list of them. There might be some in Research Like a Pro with AI, but mostly I just kind of assume that you will create your own, like with whatever locality that you're working on. And I think using the locality guide template that we gave you is probably the best prompt, is just to say, fill out this section. And what the great thing about the ability of the agent to search the web is that when I gave it the plan to search for unique besides ancestry collections, it just kind of like went and made a plan by looking quickly on the web. And it came up with some really great sites, Family Search, Library of Congress, archives.org, Hathi Trust. And I think there was like a university one, some that I hadn't even thought of myself. So I don't know that we need to really give it such really good prompts. I think the main thing I learned from this is we need to tell it what format we want it to put it in. And like, I really want you to include the URLs, that kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and it did pretty well figuring out the rest on its own.
Because when you first did it, it did not give you the URLs. It just gave
Yeah.
you the actual title. And of course, that's not very helpful for us. We want the URLs, the
Yes.
direct links. But we've seen that all along with locality worker questions that unless you told it to give you links, it didn't do it. Okay. So another question uh, that you can provide or link access to your Google Drive with basic Claude or ChatGPT. Is Microsoft OneDrive an option as well?
Yes, it is. It's listed in the connectors, so you can do that.
Yeah, those connectors are neat.